This is being presented to you because the township is forcing you into the matter. It's hoped here that you can be talked through a document of a matter that is rather complex. Actually, it's very complex. And again, this is something that the township is pushing onto you, the member. The board had no intention of having to address any of this with you. The first item here is that the township failed to record the deed of dedication in 2004. For all those years, the township wrongly asserted that the road was private, and the township led the community to believe that Anvil Corporation, the declarant, was at fault. Turns out that the township is at fault. On screen is the deed of dedication, the 15th of April 2004. This is an original deed that was not completed. The execution of this document was complete by Anvil Corporation, but it was incomplete by the township. The township has a note here that this was not recorded. That is the responsibility of the township. That is here showing that the execution by Anvil Corporation was completed. So the township is fully culpable, fully at fault. Next is the township's failure to finalize the deed of dedication led to numerous wrongs. A, plow services withheld or minimal. For anybody that does not know, the board did make an appeal to persuade the township to plow the street for a few years. We've excluded those. So the cost to the HOA for clearing the street, even though the plows would come through, they would only come through and do a 1 or 1.5 lane wide path through the community. We had to clean the rest of that snow off the street. They didn't push it to the sides of the street. The cost is $13,228, and this is projected based on a 17% of total HOA snow costs. And it excluded the years 2019 to 2023 because the HOA persuaded the township to plow for those years. Both the 17% figure and the projection for the years 2005 through 2012 are very lowball numbers, so this $13,228 is actually a conservative number. Additionally, the police services that were withheld had to do with the street being declared private from the township. The township, anytime this was addressed, the township said, no, the street is private, and so we did not have enforcement for many, many years, obviously. We did not have enforcement for blowing through stop signs. We didn't have enforcement for speeding, for parking at hydrants, no enforcement for parking in the wrong direction, no enforcement for abandoned vehicles. There were some other incidents that are not listed here. Just understand that there's quite a bit and very hard to put a number to. Item C, the township is responsible for the HOA being taxed for the street. The document that I showed you earlier with the picture of the original deed of dedication was shown to the tax assessor. The tax assessor refused to correct billing until the title was corrected. Only the township can correct the title. The total amount of charges, again, this is projected as $9,292 in property tax for the street. Note 1, the township engineers repeatedly inspected the entire community in 2002 and 2003. In 2004, all matters of the community were approved by the township engineer, thereby permitting dedication of streets to be offered to the township. This means that non-functionality of the north drain is the responsibility of the township. So the north storm drain is in pink color here. The South Long Street inlets, there's 2 inlets here and 1 inlet here. The north drain is non-functioning because the flow of water across the street does not direct that flow to the curb. The flow actually goes around the inlet and comes down to the east drain, causing overloading in the east drain and damage and erosion. The north drain has absolutely nothing going to it from the street. The only water that goes into those inlets is what falls from the sky, directly into the grate. The same thing happens on the west side of the community, where the overloading is occurring also. And this is feeding out to the tadpole pond or spring. That's a pond that's being damaged by erosion, and that erosion is largely because of the overloading. So we have 3 parts of the storm system: the north storm system in pink, the east storm system in blue, and the west storm system in blue. The overloading is the green, showing how the flow goes into only the east and west storm drain outlets or inlets. So this means that non-functionality of the north drain is the responsibility of the township. Again, the dedication of the streets came only after all inspections said the community was adequate. The engineer clearly was not addressing this issue, perhaps because he didn't want to address it. It's also possible that he just missed it. But the bottom line is it's the responsibility of the township from that point on. This means that the overloading of the east and west drain is the responsibility of the township, and it means that the erosion damage is the responsibility of the township. Note 2, overloading of the east and west drains was identified by the HOA in 2017. No street water goes into the north drain inlets on South Long Street. The overloading caused erosion damage to our storm facilities. We wanted to hold the township responsible for that. The HOA sought to hold the township accountable. Number 1, overloading until 2022. Overloading of the drains, okay, and until 2022, the township stonewalled the HOA every year since 2017. The township caused the overloading into the east and west drains, resulting in erosion damage, also caused pollution. Sediment is considered a pollutant. East and west drains, they are costing the HOA upwards of $20,500 to repair. The east drain has been repaired. The township is charging for design review $1,750. We are addressing that in the demands section. Moving on, in 2021, the township blamed the HOA for erosion problems and demanded that the HOA fix it. But the erosion damage was caused by the township. So the township came to the HOA. After the HOA went to the township every year since 2017, in 2021, the township finally realizes the erosion problems and the sediment going into the Quiddy Creek. And they come to the township and say, hey, Mr. HOA, you're messing up over here. And the HOA says, wait a minute, this is what we've been trying to talk to you about since 2017. So a bit ironic, but the bottom line is that the township started to wake up. The HOA demanded correction to the overloading, and the township finally began to listen. Erosion was causing excessive sediment pollution, as mentioned. This is an EPA matter, and the EPA is not somebody we want to deal with. If somebody were to address the EPA, the HOA would have had to explain that the township is responsible, and the EPA would probably hold both the HOA and the township responsible. This is one of the reasons why we took action to correct that in 2023. December 2023, it was finished. Item 2, 2022 agreement. An agreement was reached where the township agreed to fix the north drain inlets. The township agreed to make the water flow into the north drain inlets on South Long Street. That would make the overloading eliminated, and that was the objective. And the township agreed to do that in 2022. Accordingly, the HOA moved forward with clearing the north drain outlet. The HOA spent $2,530 to clear that outlet. But wait, the township asserted that the street was private and could not work on the road. What their their explanation was that and there's some legitimacy. If the property doesn't belong to you, you can't just go digging on the property. You can't just go changing the property. And because the deed of dedication was not filed, there was no title change from Anvil Corporation. Anvil Corporation was the declarant for the community. Anvil Corporation declared that the community would be an HOA. That's where the name declarant comes from. The deed of dedication that Anvil Corporation executed was found, but back in 2022, we didn't know that. We didn't have that find at that time. The deed of dedication has been found, and there is more information coming to you in the meeting. Trust the board that there is not complete disclosure here, because we don't know that everybody listening to this or watching this is going to keep this to themselves. Some people might feel compelled to talk to the township and disclose this, and that's fine. The HOA also began right-to-know requests to search for records. That's how we found the deed. In August 2023, the original deed of dedication document was discovered in the township files. On August 24th and 25th, an RTK, or right-to-know request for document review, was found. Document review found the original deed of dedication dated 4/15/04. The deed of dedication original was handed to the township administrator, but the administrator immediately downplayed it as meaningless. It was baffling because didn't understand what she was saying or what she was basing This is Candy Johnson, the administrator in August. And by the way, we went through 4 different administrators in 2021 and 2022. We were dealing with Nick Yingst. Nick Yingst was the township administrator who became much more amicable and much more open-minded in terms of the fact that the township had a role in the problems and needed to take action. The township administrators changed from Nick Yingst to Karen Gerhardt to an unnamed one, I don't know who it was, to Candy. So those are the 4 different administrators that we worked through since 2022. The fact that Candy Johnson immediately downplayed an original document executed by Anvil Corporation, but not executed by the township and not recorded, to play that as meaningless is absolutely unacceptable. And I had no idea where that was coming from. The deed was completed by Anvil Corporation, but the township did not finalize it. The matter is closed means the Woodside community can be ignored. Immediately following the find on August 25th, there were some communications on Monday and Tuesday that followed the 25th. 25th was a Friday. And then we got a letter from the solicitor. So on September 5th, 2023, the township administrator Candy and the solicitor Corey Lamoureux declared the matter closed. Essentially, as it says here, Woodside community can be ignored. In that letter, they asserted that the street was private, declared that the snow plowing services would be withheld. This shows a letter from Corey. It's dated September 5th. They only had three working days from the time that the information was sent to Barley Snyder with the attention of Corey Lamoureux, sent from the township. The township apparently immediately instructed Lamoureux to draft this letter because it was drafted on September 5th. Understand that that's a holiday weekend. Labor Day was the 4th. So this was an immediate response, an immediate shutdown of communication. This is addressed to me. It should have been addressed to the HOA, but it wasn't. We corrected that. Please be advised that recently undertaken task of speaking with my client, Anvil Township, regarding Woodside Court matter. This letter is being directed to you as the Board of Director member for Woodside Court Homeowners Association. And speaking with my client, it was reiterated to me after review of the current deed for the Woodside Court property that Anvil Township does not own a portion of Woodside Court or its streets. Woodside Court is presently still owned by Anvil Township, that Anvil Township does not own a portion of Woodside Court or its streets. Woodside Court is presently still owned by Anvil Corporation. This was still the case when you and I had met along with the other Anvil Township officials in 2022. What they're saying is that the township does not own that property, except for the fact that the dedication, as agreed to in the site plan, as signed on the site plan by a township commissioner at the time, Alan Yingst, that is a agreement, and that is a commitment from the township that they would accept dedication, and they did not record it. So they did not take the step to record it, and they're telling us that that is the problem of the HOA, and that the land is owned by Anvil Corporation. This locked us into the assessor taxing us. Let me go on in this. Since this is now a private land matter, the township will not get involved any further. You are more than welcome to speak to an attorney who may take the necessary actions on Woodside Court's behalf to have the deed modified to show ownership transferred to Woodside Court from Anvil Corporation. We declared to them absolutely no way. It is not the responsibility of the HOA. There's nothing in your deed that said that you would be responsible to the road. There's nothing that says that the HOA would be responsible to the road. This was just completely unacceptable. This is covering up by the township, covering up what the plain fact is that they failed in their duty to file that deed of dedication. There is more about the dedication that will be disclosed on Thursday night. So just remember that the basic principle is, again, that the township is fully and totally responsible because they did not file they did not record the deed of dedication that shows the title, and the assessor will not change from the current title just because they have the deed of dedication evidence. This is the crux of the issue here, that we experienced a complete shutdown of communication from this point on. Here he says, we will now consider this matter closed on behalf of Anvil Township since the township does not own any portion of the property currently in the ownership of Anvil Corporation. Furthermore, Anvil Township will no longer be servicing the streets of Woodside Court, including plowing of snow. The reason for this is due to potential liability on behalf of the township. Since the township does not own any portion of Woodside Court, Anvil Township wanted to ensure you received ample notification, blah, blah, blah. Hey, listen to this. They will no longer be servicing the streets of Woodside Court. What does that mean? They say including plowing of snow. So the board immediately had questions that needed to be answered as to what other services were they withholding. And they never came to an answer on that. So the HOA board had questions. We sent questions in a letter on 9/27/23. We mailed it to the solicitor. Solicitor Corey didn't answer. We hand carried it to the township administrator. The administrator, Candy Johnson, didn't answer. Multiple questions via email about leaf vac and phone call were not answered. In February 2024 meeting, Corey said that they didn't have to answer. And so what we have to understand is it is absolutely okay for the township to ignore us. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This was a deliberate plan to shut down all communication, and that was their intent. They wanted this matter to go away. Number 6, silence forced the HOA to act. In late November 2023, the HOA repaired the east storm drain. Again, we are concerned, or were concerned, about the EPA. When the township and the HOA were both implicated, we were much less concerned. But when the township shut down all communication, this became a matter where the HOA was totally exposed. The HOA had to act in case the township tried to make the HOA accountable to the EPA. With the renewed township stonewalling, the HOA could no longer rely on the township to correct anything. If the township reported the HOA to the EPA could have fined the HOA starting at $10,000. The issue is the east storm drain. As you remember the drawing with the green lines showing the overloading, there was overloading into the east storm drain, both the east and west storm drain, and that overloading causes excessive erosion. There was a breach in the pathway for the water that was intended to go into the Quiddy Creek through a pipe. The breach circumvented that and caused erosion out into the pathway. I'm going to take a moment here to show that. All right, so there's a bit of information on this that needs to be talked through. This is the east storm drain at B. We have that tan fence that's on the path there, and there's an embankment here. The intended flow was into an inlet box and through a pipe to the stream. The problem is that due to the overloading, this area here was breached from erosion. In this area, the erosion eventually caused a breakthrough, and along the light blue line, we have erosion coming down to the Quiddy Creek path. The Quiddy Creek path is shown in brown here, and this black line shows the property boundary. That shows that the bulk of the path is on HOA property. That's another issue that we address later. There used to be a green pipe in the path. Most people are familiar with this, seeing this green pipe running through the path. It's a very shallow pipe. And the point is that the erosion that was occurring here was causing sediment to go into the Quiddy Creek. There's a low spot in the path, this whole area here, where from years of erosion, the sediment was going into the creek, where the problem, well, let me get my bearings here. I need to finish explaining something here. A number of meetings, correspondences were held. Not a number of meetings, but a number of correspondences. And one of the things that is an issue, you'll see here that there's this pathway that's called an easement for stormwater flow, and that stormwater is supposed to flow into here. This is stormwater coming from the north drain. Up here is the north drain outlet, and this flow going in this area would be overloading this storm drain. It would be a lot more overloading. The overground flow is intended to enhance some infiltration where the water seeps into the soil instead of being runoff. The developers of the community redirected the flow instead of down the easement for the stormwater. They redirected the flow over the HOA park area, and it goes through. There's a higher level pipes, PVC pipes under the walking path. The embankment here has riprap for managing the water, and it does go to the channel, the swale, which is now fully reconstructed, repaired. The flow would go to this swale and then into the inlet box. And one of the issues that came out early in the discussions was that this would have to be revised on the documents to show that the easement is going to this area and that this easement is not applicable for stormwater flow. We want to have that north storm drain flow going in this direction because it is the smarter direction, because the erosion that would occur here and the erosion that would occur here would be excessive. And so having it redirected to come to here where there's existing riprap to handle the flow. Riprap is just a name for boulders. Boulders slow down the flow, minimize erosion. And these are like 6-inch to 12-inch boulders that are on this embankment. This would allow a lot more infiltration. There would be more infiltration in the swale here, so that there would be less water flowing into the creek and more water going into the ground, which is the primary objective. So because there was this erosion going out to the path and eroding the surface of the path, where the sediment that it was taking off the path was being washed into the Quiddy Creek, that exposed the HOA for having a problem with the EPA. To head that off, the HOA acted to get the east storm drain repaired. The township was shut down. They weren't willing to help us. There wasn't any correspondence, and we felt that based on what we could find, that a repair to the existing design is not something that we needed a permit. There's also no permit that exists. So number 7, on 2nd of January 2024, the HOA read a declaration and requested answers at a public meeting. The answers that were requested were the questions that the HOA posed. After realizing that the township was not going to provide services to the road, we listed about 10 questions, and some of the, let me keep on track here. Declaration was read to the commissioners stating the Woodside community viewed the matter, how the Woodside community viewed the matter. Essentially, our declaration said that we are being treated as second-class or third-class citizens because we're being taxed and not provided services, and that we've been paying for things in addition to that we shouldn't have been paying for. For example, the snow removal and the taxes. So answers to the questions were requested within 4 weeks. They didn't answer, but demanded a meeting. Now, the township, number 8, forced a meeting with the board in February. We explained that we just wanted answers to the September questions so it could ask the community to vote. What we wanted to do was contrast the two options. One was to have the street public, which it should be and has to be now because of the fact that the dedication exists. But we didn't know that when we first posed this. The community vote would be, do you want a private road? What if we put a gate at the entrance and prevented traffic from vehicles that don't live here coming onto Woodside Court? We could put a gate up by the entrance sign in the island. And could we do that? And that was one of the questions that we asked the township. We also asked if they did their due diligence to check and make sure that there wasn't some particular reason as to why the deed of dedication was not executed and recorded by the township. And they didn't answer these questions. Eventually they did answer some questions, but very unorganized, disorganized answers. And it was all veiled under an intent to railroad the HOA into an agreement that they wanted for themselves. So here the township did not disclose its intent to make an offer with on-the-spot agreement required. They offered to exchange a $1,750 design review fee for land worth at least $8,000. That's the land that the township path in the park, the township path is on HOA property, and that should not be the case. The township demanded compensation for the solicitor's work. Whoa, wait a minute now. The HOA did not authorize or hire the solicitor. The bill was upwards of $1,200 and climbing. $1,200 and climbing is probably going to be about $2,500 in the end. We are not paying the solicitor. The solicitor represents the township, not the HOA. It is a conflict of interest, and it's not something that the solicitor should be doing. The east outlet had to be beefed up to handle the township-caused overloading east drain. The township demanded on-the-spot acceptance of this really bad deal. The township became angered at refusal of the deal. The township declared that the board was the problem, that the membership needed to be directly addressed. Again, this was all in February of 2024. The township imposed a design review fee of $1,750 for the repairs and beefing up of the east storm drain. The only reason why we had to beef it up is because the township is responsible for the overloading, and they're saying that they're not going to fix it. So the repair could have been done, but the beefing up was necessary. It's an extra expense on the HOA to beef it up, to use much larger riprap, a whole number of things that were done to make sure that the east drain was built with the ability to handle the overloading, because we realized that the township was not going to be any assistance to the HOA, especially with the fact that for many months they would not communicate with us. The only reason they started to communicate was because the HOA took the matter in January 2024 to the commissioners, which makes it a public matter, and they must act on it. So the township declared the north drains as overflow and were not intended to capture the street water. I almost started laughing at that, but I listened. And let me say that the site plan makes clear that the PE, the professional engineer, or the township, one of them or both of them are not being truthful. The site plan shows with absolute certainty that there is an Area C that includes flow from South Long Street, from the Walnut Street portions. All that flow comes down South Long Street into our community, and that is supposed to go into the inlets C on each side of the South Long Street extension. The Area C and the Inlet C are linked, and those are all made with extensive plans determining the area that water is going to flow from to the low spot. The low spot being where the inlet must be located, and the inlet letter C is aligned with the area letter C. And this is absolutely clear in the site plan. So there is no way that this is really what is going on. There's no way that a professional engineer should have made any kind of statement to the township. And so we think that there's much more to this. Perhaps it's entirely possible that this is an intentional step to try to make themselves non-accountable to the flow problem, the flow into the inlets of the South Long Street storm drains. This means that the township led the HOA to waste $2,530 if they're going to go that route, because they first agreed to repair it. Now they're denying that it needs to be repaired, and so we wasted $2,530 to clear the north drain outlets. Number 10, the bad deal. February meeting was a very bad deal, a truly bad deal. The members of the HOA are owed so much more than what that deal had. Again, remember, we were being charged to pay the solicitor, and we were being told that we would be exchanging land for waiving the design review fee for the PE to review our changes, not changes, but our repairs. I can tell you right now that the PE can't do any of that, because the PE needs to know what the flow is, what the volume of water is, where is it coming from, and right now the water that goes to the east storm drain has the water that's supposed to go to the north storm drain going into it. So there's no way that the PE can make a decision on whether that work is acceptable or not, because there's no way for him to determine what the flow should be, and we are not paying for that. That is forced on us by the township, because the township is refusing to repair the flow into the north drains. So as of yet, there's no instruction. The HOA still doesn't know how to get approval to fix the west storm drain outlet. We fixed the east storm drain outlet. That was the hot button issue. We still need to fix the west drain outlet, but the township doesn't have instructions, doesn't have a permit. The HOA must dig probe holes to determine the repairs that are needed for the west storm drain. The township is hostile toward the board, so the township must stop this unhelpful behavior and restore relations so that we can get a move on fixing this west storm drain outlet. The township has been a hindrance since 2017. It's time for them to start stepping up, making good on their responsibilities. 12, estimated additional $350 per year to reduce risk. The land needs to be purchased by the township. The land that is the Quiddy Creek Park path going over homeowner association land. So just a background here, the township claimed their liability as reason not to plow. The HOA incurs liability of the Quiddy Creek path on HOA property. Extra maintenance and insurance does not eliminate liability. The maintenance would be that we have to monitor trees and trees and tree branches much more, because we have a risk, and that risk has to be mitigated. We also need to increase insurance around it, but that still doesn't eliminate the fact that there's liability, and we shouldn't be incurring expense to allow the public to come on our land. That is not something that we are in the business of doing. The township needs to purchase that land, and we are not giving it to the township. The HOA can and should close the path and issue a cease and desist order to the township to stop inviting people to trespass on HOA property. The HOA incurs liability, and this should not be tolerated. The township must pay market value estimated at over $8,000. 13, fix the flow into the north drain inlets or redraw the stormwater areas and redo the calculations. So the township wants to have their cake and eat it too. They want to just declare that the north storm drains are not applicable, and at the same time leave the site plan drawings showing that the north storm drain is an integral part and a necessary part of Area C stormwater. The Area C stormwater must flow into Area C, the Inlet C, so that the stormwater is properly managed and there is more infiltration allowed through the north storm drain, because we have much larger area for stormwater to seep into the ground. in the north storm drains. The township claims stormwater is not intended to go into the north drains on South Long Street. If so, then the township must redo the site plans and the stormwater calculations to ensure the design review of the east and west outlets uses the overloaded volumes. The changes must be recorded at the county to assure the HOA is absolved of the previous requirements. If the township declares this, what's to stop somebody from coming back to the HOA at a later time to accuse the HOA of failing to abide by the site plan for the intended flow? So the township excuses, you need to be prepared for some of these things. They're going to come up with a whole bunch of excuses. The township will claim that it didn't own the street. Trust the board. John will present, I will present the evidence at the 4/4/24 meeting. The township will claim it is not responsible for erosion because erosion was cited as a problem in 1999. Erosion in 1999 only supports culpability of the township to assure correction of the problem back then. When there was a problem in 1999, there were steps taken to mitigate it, and the township just didn't do a good enough job to assure that that would stay that way. Why? Because the overloading caused the breach and caused the erosion to occur again. Well, I don't want to get in the weeds. That's enough. The township will claim that it is not required to accept dedication. It's true, the township does not need to accept any ad hoc dedication. The township is not obligated. If I were a private owner of a street and I decided that I don't want to be a private owner anymore and I offered dedication to the township does not have to accept that. But in our case, this was a planned community. This was a site plan that was approved by the township. The township signed the site plan. The site plan says that the streets will be dedicated to the township. So, true, the township does not need to accept an ad hoc dedication, but it signed the site plan, which is an agreement to accept the dedication once all requirements are met. And most importantly, Anvil Corporation met all the requirements, and the township failed to do its duty. The township will plead that it didn't know or that an employee failed. We're supposed to feel sorry for the township, that the township just is not capable or qualified to be able to do its duty. Well, wait a minute. That doesn't... I get that people are flawed, but the system has to be in place so that those flaws are captured and corrected. The township cannot evade its responsibility, its absolute responsibility to this matter, because an employee failed to do what they were supposed to do. That doesn't work. That doesn't fly. That's unacceptable. The township has to have the proper checks in place, and they also have to fess up when somebody failed. So they should be stepping up and saying, how do we fix this? And instead, they're just shutting down everything. This does not, I'll read this, this does not prevent accountability. The township is responsible regardless of why. Furthermore, township officials repeatedly compelled the HOA to accept that the street was private. Anytime there was ever a question, the township would tell the HOA, the street is private, the street is private. And their evidence is the absence of evidence. Well, that doesn't prove a damn thing. The absence of evidence that it was transferred to the township is not an adequate argument. And now that we saw that the 2004 deed of dedication was fully executed by Anvil Corporation, there is absolutely no reason why the township can stay out of it, can deny culpability, can try to say that they're not responsible for this. So, yeah, you're going to hear this, and I assure you they're going to rest their laurels on this, but don't accept it. What the members of the HOA should demand: the township must allow drawings on file at the township building to be used to make 2 copies. Those copies would be paid for by the HOA. We only have page 1 of the site plan. There are 7 pages. Those drawings are at the township office, and those drawings need to be duplicated so that we have something to go on based on all of the other items that are in those 7 sheets, the sheets 2 to 7, 6 sheets that we don't have, but the township has. And while we have some pictures of certain areas, it only has portions of those other 6 sheets. The township must waive all fees for stormwater repairs at the east, west, and north drain outlets. We are saying that they must not charge fees for design reviews. We're not saying that they shouldn't do design reviews. That's up to them. But $5,250 is what we're potentially exposed to for paying to the township for something that they probably won't even do. And even if they did do it, the issue is that the HOA is not culpable. We are not responsible for any of the crap that they've caused us to incur. So, for example, here, the township must reimburse the HOA for $9,292 in paid taxes. We paid taxes on the street for all those years, and the township is fully responsible for that. We can't get out of the assessor billing us. We've decided that we're not going to pay the currently issued bill because essentially this matter needs to be resolved, and we're not going to pay any more. So if that bill goes into tax lien, then that's fine because we don't own it. and the township doesn't own it, but it's a right-of-way. It cannot be taken away from us as residents of this community. That right-of-way for us to get to our homes cannot be removed. The township must pay 20% of the repair cost for the east and west drain to compensate for damage from overloading. 20% at the east drain is $1,380. 20% at the west drain is $2,000. Number 7, the township must provide a hold harmless document for the erosion damage at the east and west drain. The township must issue a document stating the HOA is not responsible for fixing erosion damage at the pond. The township must withdraw all billing efforts of solicitor and design reviews. The township must provide approval to dig probe holes and to institute repairs at the west drain. Sketches to be provided after excavation, at which time and only at that point will we know what the design is for the west storm drain. The township must permit expansion of the stormwater easement for the north drain to allow for the physically as-built portion of the north drain swale. Plus, the township must share 50-50 in the cost of drawings, deeds, amendments, and recording costs. Else, if they don't want to do that, the township must allow the HOA to keep the location of the north storm drain swale and shall approve corrections to the physically as-built swale. In other words, we need a document that holds us as not responsible for revising that to the original plan. We need something that says that we are allowed to do what it is that was physically built and currently exists. 11, the township must approve of erosion minimization elements and shall waive any fees so that the HOA can improve the north drain swale with A, installing R4 stone at the sloped and narrow section of the overground flow of the north drain outlet. There's perhaps 30 or 40 feet of a steeper, narrow section which will probably have higher levels of erosion. So that needs to be addressed. We don't want to have to go through all kinds of hoops and design reviews and all that crap for that. We just want to be able to correct the matter and say that it's acceptable. The township is going to say that's unacceptable. We have to meet somewhere in the middle, perhaps. Who knows? B, installing 15 to 40 feet of 6-inch or 8-inch pipe under the paved footpath where 4-inch PVC currently exists. The 4-inch PVC simply won't work, and we have need for that pipe to replace the 4-inch PVC pipes. And C, the township shall approve any other the township shall approve any other improvements as needed for the north drain and swale to function for maximizing infiltration and reducing erosion. The township shall refrain from dictating, this is number 12, refrain from dictating or overriding efforts by the HOA to improve erosion minimization elements and shall waive any fees so that the HOA can improve swales and infiltration as needed. And number 13 is a concession by the HOA. Essentially, the HOA shall institute stormwater inspection criteria for annual inspection reports and shall secure a portion of reserve funds for regular maintenance of the stormwater facilities. This is in compliance with the site plan, which is a recorded document, which makes this a legally binding requirement on the HOA that we must maintain the stormwater facilities. And that is the end of the demands that we should be making. This will be something that you could perhaps hand the township. If you want to tear off the bottom, hand it to the township. However you want to do, it is apologized here for the choppiness and the drawl or whatever it is that I've gone on here. My apologies to everybody. Again, we did not want to put this on you. The township put this on you. You should be there at the meeting. You should be demanding the township pay these things. $8,000 for land, to give us credits, at least $5,250, probably more, to waive design fees, $9,292 in paid taxes, $13,228 for the cost of clearing the street that they did not plow, the 20% of the east storm drain, or $1,380, and 20% of the west storm drain, $2,000. These should be the demands that you make because these are wrongs that have been done against you, against the community, against the HOA. It's not about the board or any of that. The bottom line is we are a community and the township has wronged us. They've treated us like second and third class citizens as if we don't have any kind of recognition or respect that we should be respected and heard and answered. The questions that we asked needed to be answered, and well, because they didn't answer a lot of it, we couldn't bring it to the membership for an inquiry. And now, based on the information that's going to be shown in the Thursday meeting, we can't even entertain the vote that we wanted to have for the option of whether the street is going to stay private or not, because it is not private. That street, that information will be brought to you at the meeting. Finally, I think everything here is very complex. It's been a very long road. It's been difficult to address, and the township has never made it easy, even when they were being amicable and willing to discuss matters with us. So signing off, and I'm hoping that everybody from the community that can make it will be there and will start making demands of the township. Thank you.